Well, hello, everybody. How are you? I'm back. And I figured I might as well give everybody an update. I'm going to stick around here for as long as I can. Thank you, Anna. Thank you so much. That's very, very kind, very generous of you. And, you know, I don't know how long I'm going to be able to hold out because, yes, I am, in fact, in a lot of pain. So instead of wasting time complaining about how much pain I'm in, I thought I'd give you guys a quick overview. So I had my surgery last week, last Wednesday, as a matter of fact. And I was in the hospital for about 3 days, recovering. The surgery was quite invasive, and invasive in a different way from the first time that I went through cancer surgery, because the tumor was external. And after the tumor was removed, I needed a significant amount of reconstructive work done to the area itself, because the tumor was large and it had burrowed quite deep. However, the good news was that before I went in for my surgery, I was told that there was a possibility. Thank you, Kimmers. Thank you so much for the super sticker. I appreciate you. Before I went in for my surgery, I was told that there was a possibility that I was going to have lymph nodes removed because the tumor was sitting on top of not only an artery, but also on top of a cluster of lymph nodes. And I was warned that if the lymph nodes had to come out, that obviously I ran the risk of having my legs swell up. And naturally, I had these nightmare visions of like a giant balloon leg. But luckily, I did not have to have a lymph node removed, or even several. So my poor right leg, which was already screwed up, where I already have a tremendous amount of hardware in my ankle, is now covered in scars. Thank you, Snutter. Thank you for gifting a membership. I appreciate you. And it's funny because I'm not going to tell you where on my body the scars are, because that's personal. But all I can say is that if I am in this much pain right now, with like one like zipper scar going in one direction and another zipper scar going in another, having seen how much surgery was required to nip and tuck Nikocado back into shape with all the skin removal, I cannot even imagine. I cannot imagine how much pain Nikocado has been in. I heard that skin removal surgery is very painful, which is why some people choose to opt out of it. And he had a lot of skin removal surgery. So, I mean, it's weird. It's weird to know that your body has been cut apart and then zipped back up again and tightened up and everything else. So, anyway, now that that's over with, I was given 2 options going forward. One is the chemotherapy, and the other one involves radical suppression of estrogen. Now, keep in mind that I had an oophorectomy back in 2013, but I was told by my doctor that the body continues to produce estrogen, or estrogen has a way of tucking away in various and sundry parts of your body. And so estrogen suppression is one way to go. But he warned me that if I chose to go that route and forego chemotherapy, that I was running a very high risk of developing osteoporosis, which I absolutely refused to do. My mother, who had scoliosis, after going through menopause. Thank you, Betsy. It's good to see you. Good to see you. Very good to see you. My mother developed osteoporosis. Hi, Rosie. And it was horrible for her because she already had the problem with her back. And then she had the problem with the bones, and the bones were brittle, and obviously she was at a fall risk. It was horrible. So the longer that I can forestall anything having to do with osteoporosis, the better. I told the doctor that I may go through a few months of brain fog and discomfort and vomiting and all that on chemo, but I would much rather go through, 6 months of inconvenience and crabbiness and all of that, and not being able to drive and whatever else, than to put myself at risk for having my bones break or, any of that kind of thing. I want to avoid osteoporosis for as long as I possibly can. So that is what I intend to do. And let's see, what else is there to say? What else can I say? I'm extremely uncomfortable. Again, I'm in a lot of pain, but also just a lot of general discomfort. This whole process has done a number on my mental health, on my outlook on life, on everything. And so I made a conscious decision weeks ago to not watch content that upset me. Even if it was entertaining, even if it brings me tremendous schadenfreude, I avoid it at all costs. Because I have made no secret of how much I dislike so many people in the community, the content creators specifically, many of whom have accused me of lying about having cancer, even though I posted proof, but evidently that's not good enough. And I noticed that the people who have accused me of that have something in common, which is that they're all pieces of shit. Who are allowing their hatred of me and the family to override their common sense and their common sense of decency. So they can continue to read into the abyss. I could give a fuck less. So when I was in the hospital, I decided that I was going to catch up on reality TV because I haven't watched any series in a really long time. So first I went back and I watched some episodes of Hoarders, and that was yucky. So I said, well, that's enough of that. And then I stumbled across a channel called Shaun of Steel, whose content I really enjoy. And he does reactions to my 600-pound life and Hoarders. And so I started binge watching his channel, and I caught up on old episodes of my 600-pound life, which I haven't watched in years. And one of the things that I find really amusing about A-logging in general and how irrational and crazy people are is, I don't know if you guys have been following what's been happening with Amberlynn Reed and the DMs that she's received from a DoorDasher. And people like Karina, another piece of shit, are out there and they're like, oh, this is impossible, or this is fake, or this is this. I don't even know if that's what she said, although I imagine that is what she said. But I know a lot of people are questioning, like, why would a DoorDasher, hit on some big fat lump like Amberlynn? Have you people seen the pound participants on my 600-pound life? Have you noticed how many of them have a significant other, a wife, a husband, an enabler, whatever, girlfriend, boyfriend? And these are people who are bedbound. These are people who have giant legs. I saw one episode where the woman's legs alone weighed 400 pounds. They were so gigantic. They have giant lymphedema sacs hanging from their groins. And these are all people who are in relationships. Now, how dysfunctional these relationships are is really immaterial. The point is that even somebody who weighs 6, 7, 8, 900 pounds can find a caregiver that they call a boyfriend or girlfriend, whatever. So why is it outside the realm of possibility that Amber Lynn would be getting flirted with by some DoorDash weirdo? Exactly. They can't walk. They can't bathe themselves. They can't do anything for themselves. Nothing. They're enormous. So, anyway, that was just something that crossed my mind. And I was thinking to myself that at a certain point, and this was when I pieced out of my 600-pound life, when I noticed that the way that the show was produced had changed. And the scenes that we were seeing in each episode, you could see and you could tell what was scripted, what was staged, what was shot multiple times, what was reshot multiple times. And a lot of the people who appeared on that program said that they were filmed eating quantities of food in one sitting that they would never normally eat, you know. And so you've got like mom come over. I'm using a mom as an example. Will come over and cook up an entire pack of bacon and like all the eggs and sausages and an entire can of biscuits, and then just innocently wander over and put the plate in front of the person. And the person sits there and eats and eats and eats. And a number of these people said, no, I don't eat that way. In the morning, whenever, I don't eat that way, but that was all set up for the cameras. And you can tell how uncomfortable the enabler is, you know. I mean, yeah, they're feeding these people to death, no question about it. But you can tell that they're not, and their conversations are very stilted, and they don't flow naturally. I mean, these people are not professional actors, okay? So it's not that hard to tell when something is being obviously faked and when something is genuine, you know? And it's pathetic, quite frankly. And also I noticed another thing, which is the main reason that I pieced out, was that they started casting people to appear on the show who obviously were never, ever, ever going to stick with a diet. And were never going to make it to surgery. And this went on and on and on and on. And at a certain point, it's like, wow, okay, so you put somebody on TV who's going to eat themselves to death. And some of them have managed to lose weight without having the surgery. They decided to white knuckle it and do it naturally and not go under the knife. But a lot of these people, you know, it's obvious that these people were never, ever going to make it. And so I guess that what turned me off about the show was that it really turned into a freak show. Now, if you want to watch a freak show, that's cool. And trust me, I caught up on a lot of episodes that I hadn't seen that were genuine freak show material. If you just want to look at the bearded lady at the circus, then that's fine. That's cool. But when you have episode after episode after episode and nobody's losing weight, nobody's getting the surgery, nobody is dropping the weight, nobody is making any effort to better themselves, it starts to get a little repetitive and it starts to get a little depressing. Like if you go back to season 1 with Melissa and those other people, and you really got invested in their lives and the way their lives changed for better or for worse after they lost the weight. You know, Jalin is a really good example of that. there was something to it. You know, you felt like, wow, I'm really following along with the person as they change their life for the better, even if at the moment they don't realize that their partner leaving them, or coming to the realization that their partner's a piece of shit and kicking them out of the house or getting a divorce or whatever. Even if at the moment they don't realize that that's really the best outcome. Oh, I remember. Oh, are you kidding? Are you kidding? Of course. Who doesn't remember Penny? I just rewatched that episode, and it was absolutely infuriating. Her son was so adorable, so cute, and there she lays in bed like a lump, and there's her husband. What was her husband's name? Edgar? I think his name was Edgar. And it's like, really, Penny? So you don't want to make any effort. Okay, well then just die in your bed, I guess. What else is to say? Just crazy. Absolutely. Yes, the whole family is punished. The whole family suffers. The kids, the partner who for some reason doesn't fuck off. I don't get it. But imagine how depressing your life would be if the only thing that you did all day was care for someone who has no interest in saving their own life. They don't want to fight. They don't want to change any of their habits. Nothing. Wasn't Penny the one who was making wontons in bed? And you know what? That fucking show really does have an effect, because I watched her, I guess it was her, making wontons, and I developed this excuse me, overwhelming craving for wontons. So I set out for them. I just had to have me some wontons. Yeah, they do. They do pay more for the shower scenes. So, yeah, it's anywhere between $1,500 and $4,000 is my understanding. And that's in addition to the appearance fee, which I think is like $1,500. But it's obvious that the show has nothing to do with health. It has nothing to do with any of that shit. Dr. Now's son owns the production company that produces the show. So they're just going for ratings, and they're doing exactly what Hoarders did. And they're upping the ante, and they're finding more and more and more extreme cases to get people to tune in. But it stopped being about self-improvement quite some time ago. So that's one of the reasons I haven't watched, and I really need somebody to hold my hand as I watch these episodes. And Shaun of Steel is a great guide, because here's a guy who got up to 600 pounds, and I guess he had the weight loss surgery and he lost weight, and he talks very bluntly about what he experienced and how awful it was. And he's got a bit of a body sense of humor, if you don't mind that, that's cool. But he's very entertaining, and he pulls back, and he's respectful when he needs to be, and he really lets loose when he needs to. So I think that he's a terrific content creator, and I've really enjoyed watching the episodes with his guidance. I sure have, SK. I watched that years ago. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he does. And he also, he may rib them for getting huge and how much they eat and all of that stuff, but he is at least, he has at least enough class to say, look, I think that this is a good person. I don't think that this is a bad person. And when you can see people who are genuinely kind, and who don't blame everybody for their problems, and who decide that now is the time for me to choose to live, and I will do whatever I have to do He can acknowledge that. It's not like, oh, look at that fat fuck. No. And you need to make a distinction, because some of the people who appear on that show are genuinely awful. And some of them are just, they're like incredibly selfish and cruel to the people who look after them. And they refuse to take responsibility for anything. And they drive everybody around them crazy. And then there are some people who are just genuinely lost and just need that help. And those are the people that I really, really like. And in the middle of, watching one of his videos, I'll go and I'll Google the person's name to see what they look like now. And some of them have made changes that are absolutely astonishing. Oh, and then this is the other show that I binged for my pains. Speaking of scripted and producer driven, so I fell down the Super Nanny rabbit hole. Now, I hadn't watched Super Nanny in years, and I used to love those nanny shows, Super Nanny, Nanny 911, and then I started reading about how staged those shows are and what the producers will do to get the kids to misbehave more so than usual, and how the editing is done. You know how everybody always complains about getting a bad edit? Well, they do it on purpose, and so, I remember one family telling a story. This was a family with like 5 or 6 boys, and they wouldn't let the kids go outside all day. They just kept them cooped up in the house, and the kids literally started bouncing off the walls, beating each other up, bouncing around on the couch, refusing to sit still at the table, and blah, blah, blah. And a lot of that is generated by the producers, or the producers will tell the kids, if you're really badly behaved, then X will happen or Y will happen. And so they give the kids an incentive to really act out and to be 100 times worse than they usually are. So, and plus, I had to dip out of the Super Nanny reruns. Yeah, I did, Anna. I found the rerun channel, and I had to dip out of it because all that shrieking and misbehaving and all that craziness, it was too much for me. But one of the things that I did learn, because again, I'm nosy and I wanted to see what happened to the kids and the families after the cameras stopped rolling, I was interested to see how many of the parents got divorced. How many of them didn't make it. The kids, with a few exceptions, the kids turned out fine. A lot of the kids ended up, growing out of their bad behavior and getting married and having families of their own and blah, blah, blah. But the parents ended up getting divorced. And the most amazing story, okay, there was a story, and I can't remember the name of the family. Can't remember. But they were unforgettable. They were a young couple, very, very, very good looking. The wife looked like a young Phoebe Cates. Like Phoebe Cates around the time of Fast Times at Ridgemont High. The husband was gorgeous, and he worked as a quote-unquote security expert. And apparently his job required that they relocate every few months, which was very disruptive for the kids. And they were living in this stunning home I believe it was on an island right off the coast of Washington State. It was a huge house, huge. And I was kind of interested in those two because they really did look like movie stars. And I come to find out that the dad ended up getting arrested and jailed for armed robbery because apparently while the episode was being filmed, the dad had an absolutely horrendous gambling addiction. And so he cooked up a plot with a bunch of accomplices, and they decided that they were going to rob a bank, and it all turned out very, very badly for them. And apparently it was the wife that turned him in. Can you imagine? So that was one of the more interesting stories that came out of Super Nanny. And apparently the wife, and a lot of these people ended up getting divorced, remarried, whatever. But yeah, so some of the... Thank you, Zarfax. I appreciate you. No, I don't remember. I don't remember. I'm sorry. That is not even ringing a bell. So that's what I spent my time doing. Oh, I've spoken about that before. That's absolutely true. I don't think that people realize when they go on a show that that provides big prizes, whether it was Oprah with the car giveaway, The Price is Right, in the old days, Truth or Consequences, Let's Make a Deal, or in the case of Extreme Makeover, Home Makeover, there's a great example that you have to pay taxes on that shit. And Extreme Home Makeover not only screwed over the families in those houses, but it also screwed over the neighbors. I mean, if you take a 900 square foot little, bungalow, and you turn it into a 2,000 or more square foot mega mansion, then yeah, guess what? The property assessment is going to go up. It's going to do a number on your neighbors. And, a lot of the people went into foreclosure. They could not afford, or they lost their homes to the tax man. They couldn't afford to keep up with the tax payments. They couldn't afford to pay the utility bills because now they have a bigger property and they have to heat it, they have to cool it, the electric, everything else. And so a lot of people lost their homes, and they found out that when they put their home on the market, the homes were not selling. Even though these incredible homes had been designed for them, a lot of the theme rooms were very 90s. You know what I mean? And so the houses were already out of date by the time the people decided to try to sell them. And so, if you don't want a bouncy house room in your house, or you don't want some of the special features that these people added onto the home, then it's going to cost you, after buying the home, then it's going to cost you money to rip out those features and to remodel and all of that. So it wasn't even like the home value was increased when the homes were put on the market. So yeah, you see, there's a really good example. Yep. Yeah, it was actually pretty heartbreaking because these people thought, wow, ABC rolled up in here and they fixed our lives, and then they didn't realize that the show made their lives tougher, much worse. So I wanted to briefly talk about the topic of cancer treatment. Yeah, I know. Right, so if some designer popped off and decided to adapt a house to their own specs and not listen to what the owners wanted, or the owners, in the case of Extreme Home Makeover, I don't think that the owners had any say whatsoever in what was done to the home. And also, keep in mind, when you do an entire, you build additions, and you have a week to do it, I can imagine that the workmanship is very poor. Exactly. Well, isn't that the case with most shows? That the first season is always the reasonable one, and it's the one that, sucks you in. And then in order to keep the engagement up, that they have to get crazier and crazier and crazier. That's what I noticed. I've noticed it with all these reality shows. All of them. All of them fall into that trap. You know, I've been thinking about it. Now, the downside is that the cold cap is quite painful. You know what? Fuck it. I'll just shave my head. You know, it'll grow back. Whatever. And I'm sure it'll grow back thinner than ever, which is what happened the last time. And yeah, by the way, I did have cancer in 2013. I did have it. Okay? I hope that everybody got that memo. I was hoping... Hi, Kaz. Hi, Kaz. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate you. I was told that there was a possibility that it would grow back curly or thicker or whatever. No, it grew back thinner and straight as straight as hay. But you know, I was thinking about the wig option. I don't think that I'm going to do that in summer because it's way too hot. I find wigs to be very uncomfortable, and in the summer, forget it. You see, the last time I went through chemo, I went through it in the winter. And so, you know, wrapping my head up in a turban and all that was reasonable, because if I had to go outside anyway, I would have had to put a hat on or whatever. I think this time around I'm going to do beanies, and I've got plenty of scarves, so I'll just do the scarf thing. Hey, Straubs. Thank you, Straubs. I appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I wanted to finish out with one thought. It's an overarching thought, and I'll probably be exploring this more as I move forward. And by the way, my streams are not for the A-logs. They're not for the psychos. They're not for the people who are constantly accusing me of lying or blaming me for shit that other people did, or coming at me sideways, or all of that crap. I could give a fuck less about all of you. None of you have had the decency to leave me alone, so go fuck yourselves, all right? These streams are not for you. Or the ones who have decided that now that I'm sick, that they're going to go at me harder. Yeah, tells me everything I need to know about all of you. But I knew it anyway. And I think it's really adorable that more people are finding out. They all fucked around and now they're finding out. And I find it adorable that masks have come off left, right, and center. And everybody is showing their true colors. I mean, not like you weren't warned about these people, but now they're showing who they really are. And I think that that's amazing. And the fact that all of you are burning each other rotten, I find... I'll just sit back and watch. How about that? But for the cancer people out there, I had forgotten how dehumanizing it is to be in the hospital as a cancer patient. I had forgotten about that. I had forgotten about the liberties that people feel that they can take with you when you're in the hospital and you have cancer. I was subjected to not too much. All right. By and large, I was very well taken care of, looked after properly, treated with dignity and respect, and I appreciated that. But there were a couple of exceptions who reminded me of people online, these nurses, these hags. There was one in particular who, true story, decided to walk into my room one day, and I didn't think anything of it because she's a nurse. I mean, obviously it's her job to come in and do whatever the hell it was that she was supposed to do. But she marched right over to the bed, lifted the sheet, took a look at my scars, and the first words out of her mouth was, "Wow, what did you get done?" That was a thing that happened. So, in other words, she didn't come in to do business. She didn't come in to take vitals. She didn't come in to do anything that was medically necessary. She came in to gawk at me. and treat me like a freak show. And keep in mind, I was very weak at this point, and I was in a lot of pain, very uncomfortable. And I don't know if I've mentioned this, but I have lost 41 pounds since my cancer diagnosis. I lost it not deliberately, but I just dropped the weight off because I couldn't eat. And so now I'm really focusing on trying to put some weight on before I go through chemotherapy, because I am very weak right now. I'm very weak. And it's hard for me to walk, not only because of the pain, but because I get very lightheaded. My digestive system has been thrown into an uproar. And it was so bad before I went in, between the GERD and everything else, that I could not eat. I couldn't put food in my stomach because immediately I would get horrible cramps, terrible, terrible pain in my belly. And so I talked to my oncologist about it, and he said, well, why don't we see, he says, I think a lot of it is related to the tumor. I think once the tumor is removed, a lot of that will improve. And I have felt significant improvement, but my stomach has shrunk so much that I have to be very careful about how much I eat and what I put in my mouth. And I've noticed that there's certain foods that I cannot eat because they make me nauseous. So, for example, any soft white bread, like grocery store bread, it comes right back up. I just can't. It's the texture. It's just in general, it's not real bread. So I finally figured that out. But I was trying to figure out if I had a food allergy, if I'd become lactose intolerant, if I couldn't eat bread, grains, whatever. No, I can eat whatever I want. It's just that I can't keep it down. So I am skin and bones, tell you. I am skin and bones. And it is very distressing because I'm not used to it. I'm not used to it. And for the first time in my life, I am being told, you're getting too thin, and you've lost too much weight too quickly, and you need to put weight on. And so I'm trying to take in protein naturally and not with the drinks or the powder or whatever, because I know that if I drink those protein drinks, I'm just going to vomit them up, So I'm looking for protein-rich foods. I bought some lentils. Greek yogurt is my friend, and I'm really packing it down. I haven't tried the shake recipes yet, Anna. I just bought an enormous amount of ice cream so that I can try making the shakes, and I bought a blender so I can stick the ice cream and the whatever in the blender and make it into a milkshake and have it not taste so, proteiny. But it's been a lot. Hi, sour gummies. Yeah, lentils. Lentils with a nice kielbasa or andouille sausage, because spiciness doesn't upset my stomach. Spiciness doesn't bother me. It's, just overeating, and I have to be very, very careful. Oh, Greek vanilla yogurt. Okay. Well, I just bought a whole bunch of Chobani, which is my favorite. So, but yeah, I mean, the thing that I'm worried about is, losing my balance, getting dizzy, because I'm malnourished at the moment. So I don't want to fall over. I don't want to fuck up my ankle any more than it's already fucked up. I walk with a walker when I feel that I need the assistance, and the pain comes and goes in waves. I sound like Comfortably Numb, that Pink Floyd song. You are only coming through in waves. That's what I say to the pain. But anyway, things are looking up because next week I get the drains taken out. The drains have been awful. If any of you have ever had surgery where you've required drains afterwards, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They're unnatural. They make you feel like you've got an alien coming out of your body. They're gross, and yeah, that would be my opinion. Sour gummies. That is my opinion. So, yeah, vultures, I know. I'll be fine. It's just that the recovery, I thought that the recovery was going to be easier because the last time organs were removed and my omentum was removed and my bowel was resectioned and restructured and all of that happened. But this time around it was external. Can I have quinoa? Sure. The question is, do I want to eat quinoa? SK. Yeah, I'm going to have the drains in for about 3 weeks, and I absolutely fucking hate them. I hate them. I've had them before, and the worst part about having drains, not to gross everybody out here, the worst part about having drains is when they're removed. It is disgusting. That feeling of those tubes coming out of, ugh. So I think that when I go see my reconstructive surgeon and he pulls the drains out, I'm going to say, please do a countdown. Do 1, 2, 3, okay? Don't do it all of a sudden. I want to know it's coming so I can hold on to whatever is around me. And make sure that you have a trash can next to me in case I vomit, because it's a gross, weird feeling when they come out. Am I afraid of dying? No. Absolutely not. Oh, see, there you go. See, Linda Rose and I, we're simpatico. We get it. You know what I mean. No, I kicked my fear of dying when I was diagnosed with cancer the first time. And my prognosis was very poor. My prognosis is very good right now. So, no, I'm not afraid of dying. What I am concerned about, not like scared of, but it's getting from A to B, because I know what to expect with chemo. I know exactly what to expect. Only this time, the protocol is going to be much harsher. Because last time I had a protocol that divided the chemo up into sort of easier to manage infusions. Now, both of the chemo medications, the Taxol and the carboplatin, are going to be administered on the same day. So before, I would go in for like an hour, hour and a half, once a week. Now it's going, and the longest infusion would be every 3 weeks when I started a new round, and it would be like 3 hours. Now it's going to be 6. So I'm going to have to load up the tablet with interesting stuff. The last time I got through chemo by watching Law and Order, just binging it, the original one, the one in New York with Chris Noth, I just binged it from beginning to end. I think that now what I'm going to do is I'm going to binge Better Call Saul. So, yeah, I've done it before, vultures. This is not my first rodeo. I've been through it before. Now, granted, the last time I went through it, I didn't have people wishing me ill. I didn't have people accusing me of lying. I didn't have people wishing for my death or my suffering, or that I would go broke, or that I would end up on the street or homeless or abandoned or whatever, which has all happened to me this time around. Everybody wished me well. So if I ever get to the point where I'm feeling a little bit down about what people are saying online about me and the way that people are like mocking me or wishing me ill, all that I have to do is go on Facebook and talk to people that I know in real life and ditch these scumbags. And I think it's adorable that all of them have found each other. I do. I think that they've all ended up exactly where they belong. And where they belong is not in my community. I mean, they're all blocked. I've got them in the word filter. I've blocked and muted a ton of people on Twitter so that I can go on Twitter and read, keep up with the news or whatever without being assaulted by the lies and the abuse and the harassment and the accusations and the other shit. So, yeah, I've blocked a lot of people, Linda Rose. I've blocked a lot of people, and I have no intention of engaging with a single one of them. I'm not going to engage with any of these content creators, none of them. I have absolutely nothing to say. Thank you, Renee. I appreciate you. Thank you for the super sticker. I have nothing to say. Absolutely nothing to say. And I would appreciate it, by the way, if some of you content creators who have been poking around behind my back trying to get updates on my health would stop. If I have something to say, I will say it on my channel. So, hi, Pam. I don't know why you are so determined. I wonder how many of you started calling around to hospitals to figure out where I had checked in. And I don't put it above any of these people, by the way. None of them. I fully expect that people were making calls around to hospitals to see if they could find me. Because they've done it before. So it wouldn't be out of character. But again, I am moving forward. I am looking forward to chemo because the sooner I get started, the sooner it's over. The sooner I can, and the sooner I can get back to normal, grow my hair back out, and decide, what I want to do with it going forward. It's going to take a long time for it to grow out to any, reasonable length. But I'll wear the scarves, I'll wear the beanies, I'll wear the turbans. I'm being well looked after with a lot of love and a lot of patience. So anyway, all right, guys, I have run out of steam. I am officially tired. And the longer I sit, the more I worry about what's going to happen when I get up and how much pain I'm going to be in. So I'm going to go lay down on the couch. And I appreciate you guys. You guys are such a great community. I always had a great community, especially when the scumbags decided to unsubscribe. When I had my first channel, then I had a great community. Once the weirdos and the stalkers and the psychos decided to leave. Now, they all spent years A-logging me afterwards. But you guys are really great, and I really appreciate all of you. And I think that the next time I may try to take a crack at reviewing some videos. We'll see. All right. Well, I appreciate all of you. Thank you again. Thanks for the donos. It's good seeing everybody. I'm not going to lie and say that I missed streaming because I didn't. Because I was so preoccupied. But now this is a great way to kill an hour or two and to get my mind off of my problems. So thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. And I will see you guys the next time. Thanks, guys.